were not happening. So in today's talk, I'm going to talk about the power to transform our lives by being willing to step outside of our comfort zones. I'm going to talk about embracing the unknown and discovering the growth and fulfillment that's awaiting us. And I'm going to talk about taking action today. Specific things that we can do today. Not just theoretically, but practically. So we all know that our comfort zones let us feel safe, right? The thing about our comfort zones is that they also can lead us to become stagnant. They can also lead us to just simply stop. Now, in order to break out of our comfort zones and break out of stagnation, we have to confront fear and we have to confront resistance. Now, sometimes when we're in the midst of it, it's impossible to see it. For years, people doubted that we live in a world filled with oxygen because we can't see it. Now, if you go to some countries nowadays, you do see that the air is thick and that, in fact, that you are breathing in stuff. LA, lots of places in China. Cairo. So there are places where we can see it, but we get so used to it. We've heard the expression, a fish swimming in the water doesn't recognize the water. When we're in the midst of our fear and when we're in the midst of our resistance, we are just blind to it. In the story of Tina Turner getting together with Ike, he hit her. He hit her in the head very early in their relationship. But she didn't think anything of it because that's what she saw. She didn't think of herself as particularly worthy because her parents got called away to work during the Second World War, and she got dumped in her grandparents' home, and her grandparents weren't all that receptive. They weren't like, "Ooh, this is so delightful, we get to take care of our grandchildren." They weren't like that. And then her parents came back, and her mom was like, "I am done with this." Her mom was really never interested. Tina described how her mom said, her mom could have had the life that she wanted. It wasn't having 3 daughters. That was not her dream. And so when she wasn't the Hallmark movie mother who's just like and thriving on every word of her children's coming from her children's mouth or just delighting in her children's presence, Tina learned to think about herself in a certain way. How many of us learned to think about ourselves in a certain way? We just get inured to it. We just get immune to it. We just get sucked into it. We believe that that's all there is. So how do we face it? How do we confront it? The easiest thing is to look for these 3 features. Are we in fight? Are we in flight? Or are we frozen? So to just start the day, where am I in fight? Where am I in flight? Where am I frozen? Because all of those reactions are the way the human animal has been designed, has evolved to deal with fear. With fight, with flight, with freezing. Now, freezing is a fairly recent recognition. We all know it. We've all known it. That getting stopped, that you just can't move. that frozen quality. Fight and flight, that's what we're taught first. Partly because it rhymes. Fight or flight. Freeze is not a rhyming word with fight or flight.
Dear.
The first step is to recognize it, to see that it's present. We can become aware of our fear when we're present to how we are responding to it. And when we see that happening, we can choose how to be with it. So there's that first piece in terms of how to cope with fear, facing the fear. It's recognizing it. The second thing is to understand that if we are fearful because of failure, that's great. What baby ever stood up and started walking and cruising and went from walking to doing marathons? There are no babies that are recorded in history as going from standing up and running a marathon. We don't expect that. That's not the developmental course. We don't look at a baby falling down and think, you're a little failure. We don't listen to the babbling sounds of a baby and say, boy, you're terrible at language. You're really just the worst talker in the universe. We don't look at little ones' explorations, and we don't judge it as failure. That comes later. But we don't have to keep revisiting that claiming, that naming, that defaming. We all know that Thomas Edison tried a whole bunch of different ways to make light bulbs. We know that, and we don't put a big failure under his picture because of all of those failed efforts. What we look at is we're excited that here was somebody who was just going to continue trying. How much grace do we give ourselves in our continuing efforts? I know I've definitely been critical of myself for saying, I'm trying too much. If I don't have it by now, am I ever going to get it? Making progress is the ability to keep working to make something happen. Now I want to share something from Ernest Holmes. This was in his Science of Mind textbook. So if you all want to open your pages to page 404, paragraph 2, you could do that. But if you don't have your book and you're not able to do that, I'll read it to you. Fear brings limitation and lack in its wake, blocking the more complete givingness of the Spirit to its highest form of manifestation on the planet. God is more completely expressed through the person who lives largely than through the person who lives meagerly. Fear is a belief in limitation, a denial that the divine is the center and source of all good. We must do all in our good to overcome it. So I'm going to move to the second point, that we have an opportunity to overcome limiting beliefs and self-imposed boundaries.
Hi. Good morning. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm just wondering, how can I access Unit A? I'm supposed to drop a package and...
Oh, it's up the stairs.
Is it stairs?
Yeah, it's upstairs.
Where?
And the stairs are in the back.
Yeah, you go around back upstairs.
Okay,
That's
thank
on
you
the
so
top of
much.
the meeting.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, so how do we overcome limiting beliefs and self-imposed boundaries? Like I described, one of the first things is to just start recognizing it. We can't overcome any limitation, we can't overcome any boundary if we haven't seen that it's there to overcome. In his Edinburgh lectures, Thomas Troward, you all know Thomas Troward.
Oh, yes.
Thomas wrote very long sentences, so this is actually one of his shorter ones. You'll be excited to know that. Belief in limitation is the one and only thing that causes limitation, because we thus impress limitation upon the creative principle. And in proportion as we lay that belief aside, our boundaries will expand, and increasing life and more abundant blessing will be ours. I'll say that again, because I think it's important. Belief in limitation is the one and only thing that causes limitation, because we thus impress limitation upon the creative principle. And in proportion as we lay that belief aside, our boundaries will expand, and increasing life and more abundant blessing will be ours. So what are ways to cultivate this extension beyond our limiting beliefs and those boundaries that we have set for ourselves? Well, you've all heard of practices like meditation. Mykal had us do that this morning. Meditation doesn't have to be something that is guided, but we can just go on the internet and find a meditation like that. We can go and just slow down and pay attention to our breath. We can go for a walk. We can set ourselves in front of something that we see as beautiful. If you enjoy Tina Turner, you can turn Tina Turner's album on and you can meditate on what Tina has to sing about. We can use affirmations. We can say out loud to defeat, to counteract all of the quiet things that we often think to ourselves in a drone. In a repetitive drone. So if we catch ourselves, I'm not good enough, I failed again, then there's the oh to cancel it out. Oh, look at that belief. I am going to affirm that I am enough. I am going to affirm that I am more than enough. What does it feel like to just pause for a moment and say, I am enough. I am more than enough. An affirmation doesn't have to be something difficult. It may be difficult to believe it, but just like the baby learned to walk and learned to talk, repeating it makes it more practiced. Even when we have talents, by practicing those talents, they become easier and take less and less effort. You might incorporate journaling. Mykal loves to talk and encourage people to journal. And once again, the journaling doesn't have to be, we don't have to be thinking of it like we're going to be turning this in, that this is an assignment that someone is going to be grading. We can just write. Sometimes the process of just putting the pen to paper or taking the time, giving ourselves the space we can seek guidance from a mentor. One of the things that we're doing today is we're having a prayer exchange. So we can be praying the prayer that we receive in the prayer exchange. Another way to overcome belief and limitation is to embrace discomfort. Brene Brown said, you can choose courage or you can choose comfort. You cannot have both. You can choose courage or you can choose comfort. You cannot have both. Years ago when Mykal and I took the Landmark Forum course, heard the idea that you can love or you can be right. That it's really hard to be right and to be love. We tend to think that if I'm right, that my rightness is the love that I'm going to be giving the world. But the world doesn't necessarily receive that. And Annette White told us, each time you try something for the first time, you will grow. A little piece of the fear of the unknown is removed and replaced by a sense of empowerment. So then the third thing, so if the first is confronting our fears and confronting our resistance, and the second thing is overcoming our limiting beliefs and those boundaries that we have accepted and that we have incorporated, and we said they must be right. The third thing is to deliberately expand our boundaries and to embrace new experiences. So what comfort zones have we held ourselves to? Where might we stretch? Where might we break down the familiarity? In the story of Tina Turner, Tina adopted a new name. Is there a new name that you want for yourself? Instead of calling yourself a person who's maybe fearful, will you call yourself a person that is encountering fearsome situations? A big shift, at least in my mind, historically, is the understanding of what calling people slaves versus calling people enslaved. When people were called slaves, they became the property. When they were enslaved, they were no longer belittled and turned into property. We look at the action of the injustice against people. When they're slaves, we aren't thinking a whole lot about injustice. When you hear enslavement, it turns it around. So our capacity to expand boundaries can happen very much with our language, with our choices. I want to identify two other people whose names changed as a process in transformation. People are pretty familiar with the person Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his father, Martin Luther King, changed their names when Martin Luther King went to Germany on a spiritual adventure. His church sent him there to learn things. And he was so impressed with Martin Luther that he took his own name, Mykal King, and he changed it to Martin Luther King. And he changed his son's name as well, Martin Luther King Jr. what names do we want to take on? How many people have heard Malcolm X? But the Malcolm X came because Malcolm chose X because he wanted to discard the name of enslavement from his white enslavers. The family name was Malcolm Little. How would you like to go through the world as a little? That couldn't contain Malcolm. In researching the talk, Malcolm Little's family his father and his mother were people who were standing up for civil rights. A whole generation before he was doing it. And there's good belief, based on evidence, that his father was probably killed. And even though his father had 2 insurance policies, only one of them paid his mother. And it left the family in a state of destitution. The other policy said, oh, we're not going to pay you because we suspect that his running into a streetcar and dying from that was him trying to kill himself. It's like George Floyd trying to kill himself. Malcolm X was carrying on a larger and longer heritage. Martin Luther King Jr. was also carrying on a longer heritage. And both men, they're actually the subject of a National Geographic production around genius. And what the production is showing is that so often we, from a patriarchal white perspective, like to think of big heroic people. But the fact is that Martin Luther King Jr. was married to Coretta Scott King, who was a powerhouse in her own right. And Malcolm X's wife was a powerhouse in her own right. To expand boundaries, sometimes we need to look beyond our own personal stories and see how we are connected to so many other stories. That our story is not a single solitary story, but is one that is woven together with others. We're taught to see our story, but by expanding boundaries, we see ourselves interconnected with other stories. So find where we are stuck in our comfort zones. Play with the idea. What are some examples of time that you have stepped out of your comfort zone? What are those steps that you have taken? And with those steps, celebrate those victories. Celebrate every step, no matter how small, no matter how much you may have diminished it yourself. Oh, it's no big deal. When you say that, I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of that. Catch that. Pay attention to it. And set it aside. As you set it aside, you are expanding that boundary. You are letting yourself be bigger than you've allowed yourself before. be willing to take inspired actions. So I am going to conclude us with an affirmation, and then we're going to have another song. And Michael's going to share the affirmation, so you're actually going to get to see it. So you don't have to remember it. Easier for the brain. Changes may challenge me. Changes may challenge me. And life fills me with all I need to meet my challenges. Changes may challenge me. And life fills me with all I need to meet my challenges. And one more time, and really feel it. Changes may challenge me. And life fills me with all I need to meet my challenges. And so it is. And our concluding song is going to bring us back to Tina Turner. Tina Turner, Anime Bullock, in a context of a chant with adorable children.
Salvation.
Okay. First of all, I just want to remind everybody, I think that if they remember that it's Prayer Shin Sunday. And those of you at home, hopefully get your request formulated and send it in. So Reverend Vaughn, the secretary today, can write them up. And you might probably get a hint of what the talk is going to be about. I mean, there's been a lot of puzzle talk. Well, that's not the title of the talk, it just happens to.
Fit like the puzzle?
Yeah, I changed what they had for a talk to All of Me, and immediately that movie, All of Me, I love that movie, with Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin, where I think she feels that when she comes back, when her soul comes back in this beautiful, young, healthy woman, that her life will be different, and it will be different in a lot of ways. But this whole story, I don't know if anybody's, I won't ruin the movie, so it's an old movie. And in that song, the one part I really liked was that basically that you can't know somebody just by one piece of the puzzle. You can't know somebody just by their mood, the day, the moment you meet them. I mean, that's really tricky. And last week we learned about the practice makes progress in Reverend Vaughn's talk. And it does, the practice always makes perfect. Well, we're looking at the basically the imperfections this month. And so today we're going to go deeper into the concept of embracing our imperfections as a transformative shift in perspective. In Science of Mind, we say, change your thinking, change your life. And here we change perspective of how we look at things. We'll explore the profound possibilities that arise when we shift our perception and recognize that everything in existence, including what we perceive as flaws, is divinely perfect. Everything is divinely perfect. By leading into imperfection, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and discover a greater sense of acceptance and appreciation for ourselves and others. In this way, by embracing imperfection, it allows us to cultivate self-acceptance and deepen our connection to the divine presence within us and within those all around us. The idea of cultivating self-acceptance. Because we have to learn to accept ourselves first before anything else. Because if we don't accept ourselves, just like loving, if we don't love ourselves, we can't really love somebody else. So by looking at everything that we are, every little, what we call flaws, imperfections, mistakes, whatever, that's all part of us. It's all part of our chemistry, all part of our makeup. And we are like pieces of a puzzle. That's what I came up with, because I felt like we are pieces of that puzzle. In the old church, at one time we got these little stick pins, and they were pieces of the puzzle, and we are each a piece of that puzzle. But within that big puzzle is that smaller puzzle, which is us, and we must use all of the pieces, both the good things about ourselves that we like about ourselves, and the things we don't like, or the things that we call flaws. If we leave those pieces out of the puzzle, our life cannot be complete. Leaving those pieces out is, that you're rejecting them, and they're still going to be there. However, there's certain things you can change. Our life is not complete without those. And so We are a bigger part of the puzzle known as the universe. As Reverend Vaughn did in the meditation, you're part of the start of yourself, and you move out to the community, and so on and so forth until you get to the universe. And it's all one. We're all divinely one. Sometimes we think we know what others have been through. And like in the song she said, I can't know, you can't know what I've been through. And that's true. We don't know what another person's been through until we actually, that's when you sit down and you have a conversation, when you talk and you listen, and you sincerely listen. You don't just say, oh yeah. Like sometimes that happens. Now, if we leave those pieces out of the puzzle, our life can't be complete, And by thinking that we know somebody before we actually know them, is wrong. It's cheating them, and it's cheating us. But that isn't true unless we open up to share. We assume so many things about people. I mean, that is, and everybody knows what assume means. And that is so true, that when we assume, we're making huge mistakes. We shouldn't judge someone by just one piece of it, or by just one brief meeting, because I met one of my best friends when I was in Japan. It was interesting. I didn't like him, and he didn't like me. Just by that, kind of like the one meeting with the outing or whatever. And then all of a sudden, our girlfriends took off, and we became, best friends. And we told ourselves why we didn't like each other in the beginning, and it was interesting. I was too quiet and whatever, and I thought he was Mr. Uppity, Mr. I'm better, and it's and first impressions sometimes are right, sometimes they're dead on, but sometimes they're not right. And so you can't know a person just by that one little piece of them. You got to examine and find out the whole, all the pieces, the edges, the middle. I'm not a great puzzle person. I got a big pieces and small amount of pieces, in the puzzle, that's fine. But when you get those 1,000, whatever, 10,000, no. Because there's too many. It drives me crazy. And I guess sometimes with people that can do the same thing. Or some people do drive me crazy. It's plain and simple. And some part of it's my doing. One little piece of a person does not define that person. And at the same time, as we change, they change. Each day we're new. That's one of my favorite things. Is that each moment we make new. Every time we take a breath, something is new in our body. We breathe in that beautiful oxygen that feeds our cells and our entire body. And those cells become new again, and over. We're basically regenerated. And so, in our daily lives, at a split moment, it can change. All of a sudden, it can be a death you find out about. And that immediately changes everything. Like you say, you're going to plan to do this and this and this today, and you get this news, and all of a sudden, wham, your whole day, your whole life has changed. And a lot of things can make this happen. Joyful things, can change your life in the same way. So I look for the joy. We are simple, yet extremely complicated. We are this being of divine expression here on this earth, to be only what we can be, to do only what we can do. I can't do what Reverend Vaughn was sent you to do, or Leva, or anybody. And they can't do what I was sent you to do. Each of us has our own mission if we choose to accept it. However, we are actually very simple. We're here, and each and every person, that article that Reverend Vaughn said about belonging, we all want to belong. We all want to feel loved. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be heard. And those are very simple things. Yet, it can be so complicated. And I have to say myself, I complicate things. I could take some of the simplest things and really make a real mess out of it. Because my perspective, I'm looking at it this way. But then somebody says, well, why don't you, take a different look at it? And when you do that, it's a whole different thing. And just like in conversation, you're talking religion or politics, which we know about a lot. If you listen to the other person, you're honoring them by listening. It doesn't mean you have to change your mind, and you don't have to change your mind. You don't have to fall into what they believe, but you may get a better understanding of why they believe it. The biggest thing that I had was when we were at the old location. I was there one day during the week, and this young lady came in, and she started talking, and she said that she was Muslim. And I have never really had anything to do with the Muslim religion. And we sat there, and I don't know how long we talked. And it was so amazing because I could ask questions back and forth, and it was just like, okay, I don't have to agree with that, but I can honor and respect that. Just like my mother-in-law, when she came out to visit, her first visit when I was there, I found her a church where she could go to Mass because that was very important to her. That's not important to me, but for her to get there was important. So it's how we look at things, we're doing it, I think to be kind in a lot of ways. Kindness is a magnificent thing. Just be kind to somebody or something. Like, we're driving down the road and I'll let somebody in or something. It's, oh, there's my act of kindness for today. But I usually do more than that. But sometimes, Reverend Vaughn says I'm more whatever than he is. So sometimes I have to make up for him. Anyway, we often judge ourselves too harshly because of course, we are our own worst critics. The divine made us the critic of the world, the judge of the world. Sometimes I believe people think that. Sometimes I act like that. And sometimes we pick at ourselves. Well, I don't like this about myself. Well, I don't like that about myself. Or I'm too tall, I'm too short, I'm too old. And I was going to put I'm too young, but who complains about being too young unless they want to get their driver's license or drink? Those are two things but nowadays I look at who the hell complains when I get too young, I would like to be able to complain that. But we do that, we pick at ourselves. And in turn we do that to others. We judge them, we pick at them. They should be more like us. Then the world would be very boring if everybody was like us. If we were all alike, it would be extremely boring. Look at these things that are not found, that we're not fond of, and realize and accept that they are part of us. They are an integral part of us. And there's one thing about it. We have this one thing called choice. We can choose to change. When we see these things about ourselves, don't criticize, just say, no, I don't like that. And do something about it. Do something to change it. If you don't like, we say gossip for one thing. Gossip is really like I reference or refer to it as like an assassination. So it is. When you're negative gossip, I guess there's good gossip. You're passing along good news. That's good gossip, I guess. But the negative one, when you're cutting somebody down, and you're you're saying negative things. You are, in a sense, assassinating their character. It may be true, some of the stuff, but it just doesn't feel right to do that. Everything in existence, including what we perceive as flaws, is divinely perfect. By shifting our perception and leaning into our flaws and mistakes. Like we make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Well, there may be somebody out there that doesn't make mistakes, but I find that hard to believe. I know I make my share of them. But by leaning into your mistakes and seeing, okay, how can I be different the next time? Like I've used this reference about when I was a lead at Boeing on swing shift, and I kind of laid into this one guy. And I went back and I felt really bad about it. Because I really don't like to do that. And so I went back and apologized. But I told him, I said, I'm apologizing not for what I said, but how I said it. I said, there's other ways of being. You don't have to be cruel. And we went into it about blunt honesty, like the one, Jeffrey likes this one. I told this woman, she asked me how I liked her haircut. I said I didn't. I learned that was not the right thing to say. So, things like that are mistakes, are what we perceive as flaws. We can change them, We can make over ourselves. And then as we grow and age and mature, I think most of us do that. I think most of us, we learn that, okay, it's going to be different this time because I'm going to be different this time. I know my stepfather, every time he quit drinking, every time, it was many times, he did for a while, and then he would come back, and my belief is that he thought it would be different. And when I got into treatment and into AA, I found out that that's why a lot of people go back, because it's going to be different this time. And a lot of times it is different, it's worse. So, from our perspective of oneness, we understand that all is divine. Oneness does not imply sameness or uniformity. It encompasses the diverse expressions of existence, including our imperfections. We recognize that each individual is a unique piece that contributes to the wholeness of the divine tapestry. Each one of us are a part of this universe. If we weren't here, something would be missing. So we're each a piece of the divine tapestry. Ernest Holmes, in The Science of Mind, said, our teaching is that we each actually have a body, that we actually have a subjective life, and that we actually are spirit. Body, soul, and spirit represent a point where individuality is accentuated in universality. We are forced to the conclusion that there is but one mind. Each individual, however, is a unique variation in the universe. No two people are alike, and yet all people are rooted in that one identical, that one which is identical. We're all individuals, all unique. And I like to use the idea that we're all connected, and I love to use the idea of we're all connected with this golden thread that is woven in and around us and moves on and connects and connects and connects. That it somehow gives me a warm feeling that we are all connected, especially when you're in a spot when you feel that you are all alone, that nobody gives a rat's patoot about you, that you're really, and you're beating up on yourself, of course. And if you can just imagine and picture that golden thread of connecting and adding on one by one by one, that we are connected, and that idea of that golden thread is that divine love. That's how we are connected, by that divine love. at the heart of this journey lies an understanding of self-worth. Our worthiness is inherent simply by the act of being born. But being born, we are made worthy. Oh, I don't believe we would be here. So many of us think that we are worthless. We're not enough. I think that's one of the biggest things about each of us, that we feel that one time or another that I am not enough. I'm not enough for this, I'm not enough for that. I know I have felt that, and I think other people would. Embracing imperfection means embracing ourselves fully. The warts and all. You know, I love that. I don't know where that saying came from, but you embrace everything, you embrace the warts and all. And that's why then you're accepting yourself. Whether you like it or not, it's up to you, and that's up to you to change if you want to. It is a realization of our inherent divinity and a celebration of our unique expression to the world. Embracing the tapestry of life, we invite ourselves to embrace imperfections as an essential aspect of our being. Imperfections are not shortcomings, but rather valuable components that add depth and meaning to our mosaic, to the mosaic of life. By celebrating the variety and the extent of human experience, we develop a greater appreciation for the intricacies and the complexities of our existence. Like I said earlier, we are complex, yet we are simple, and parts of our lives are complex and simple. Through this lens, imperfection becomes threads that weave together as a tapestry of beauty and self-discovery. We actually find out who we are. When we go into that meditation, contemplation, or whatever, and trying to, who am I in this? And we honestly listen, and things that come up. There's going to be things that you don't like that come up. But that's when you learn, if you're honest with yourself, when you're in these situations, and you look at who you really are. Who am I? Why am I here? I guess that's the biggest question of life. Why am I here? Or who am I? If we sit down and we're honest with ourselves and allow ourselves to be honest, and that's why Paul was talking about spiritual practices. Another one is journaling, which I highly recommend. I don't do as much as I should, but I highly recommend it, because when you journal, if you journal totally without condemnation or judgment, just allow the pen to the paper or the fingers to the keyboard or whatever, and just let the pen flow. And you would be amazed what comes out. I mean, I have been. It's just like, whoa, where did that come from? Or I never knew that. And so that's learning more about yourself, embracing the whole. This going through this lens, this reminds us of the infinite possibilities that unfold when we release the limitations of perfection. If we release the idea that everything has to be perfect, I think life, then we can be easier on ourselves. Like I said last week, that what was the affirmation? I am perfect, whole, and complete, just as I am, and we are. Like I say, warts and all, we are perfect, whole, and complete, just as we are, because we are that divine expression, here to express what the divine wants us to. And so each experience, each person you meet, and each decision you make is a piece of that puzzle. Each choice. And I love, one reason I love choice, have to get a drink because my voice is going somewhere. Because each choice we make, like say you choose, a pink car, God forbid, and you say, I really don't want this pink car. You can make another choice. You can get a blue car, get a red car, get a purple car. You can always make another choice. You're not stuck with that one choice. Sometimes the pieces may need a little clarification. And you may feel lost and overwhelmed. And that's why I know for myself a lot of times when you're meditating and you specifically are contemplating, I would say, on a specific thing, and that still small voice comes up and tells you, speaks to you, and you go, huh? You can always ask for more clarification. You say, I need more clarification. I need to know more. And it'll be shown to you, maybe not at that moment, but all of a sudden one day, poof! I've had that happen many times, just like my memory sometimes. I can't remember something, and I go to ask somebody about it, and I don't need the answer for them because I already remember it. And it's sometimes it's very scary. But it's allow the light into the darkness. Allow that light to come in. Don't stay in the darkness. And hope into caverns of confusion. Hope is a valuable thing. And new clarity to see how the pieces of your life should fit together. Because the divine will show us how to solve the complex situations with people in our lives, people and situations in our lives. And it will also show us how to connect the dots on the inside. It's not just the outside. You have to connect the outside with the inside and the inside with the outside. So that you can see what has been going on in the background. Where you can understand, okay, where did this come from? Because sometimes in our lives, things happen and they keep repeating. You go, okay, and if we can go back and, dig and dig and dig to finally realize, oh, that's where, that's why, and all these things, and the little aha light comes on. I love that little aha light. The universe has never stopped working on our behalf. The divine has our back. Spirit has our back in every and all situations. By embracing imperfection in these ways, we embark on a journey of self-discovery and transformation. The invitation this week is to look for places in our lives where our imperfections are asking us to shift our perspective. Where can I shift my perspective this week? I think about this only in one way, because I a lot of times live in blood with blinders. I mean, real tight blinders. And I don't believe that's a healthy way to live. We need to allow those blinders to get a bigger perspective of what's around us, who's around us. To shift our perspective and embrace diversity and uniqueness. Our diversity and our uniqueness, because we are unique. And recognize the significance of imperfection and personal growth. Okay? I don't like this about myself. This is something I don't like. I find it a flaw. How can I change? What does it do for me? Through this exploration, we can uncover new pathways to self-acceptance, authenticity, and a greater sense of belonging in the vast tapestry of our existence. And they had this other quote, which I had to share because it just was perfect. Imperfection is beauty. Madness is genius. And it's better to be absolutely ridiculous than absolutely boring. And that was by Marilyn Monroe. I read that and I go, I think that's perfect. Imperfection is beauty. madness is genius, and madness is genius. And it's better to be absolutely ridiculous than to be absolutely boring. And I believe that is so. And now we're going to move into our affirmation. Somewhere here. Oh, where are you there? Oh. Okay. This is where we're going to go. Okay, and this is another one of those that we repeat 3 times. Ah, there it is. And so, I embrace my flaws and mistakes and discover profound possibilities. I embrace my flaws and mistakes and discover profound possibilities. One more time. I embrace my flaws and mistakes and discover profound possibilities. And so it is. And it looks like I forgot to do it. Oh well.